Hi, I'm Dr. Nidhi Khare. Students, in my previous lecture, I talked about the elements of organizational culture. And as you know, at the root of any organizational culture is a set of core characteristics that are collectively valued by members of an organization. And in this context, I discussed a model by Chapman and Jen. Now, in today's lecture, I'm going to discuss another description of the elements of organizational culture presented by Sheen. This model proposes that the culture of an organization comprises of basic assumptions, artifacts, and values. Basic assumptions are the basic precepts that characterize an organization in terms of what it is, what it stands for, and what it is all about. It is what drives the organization and determines how its members perceive, think, feel, and behave. It underlies the various aspects of organizational activity and represents the core ideology. In the next slide, you can see some examples of basic assumptions underlying the organizational culture of a few companies. AT&T, basic assumption, market-oriented communication system. Citibank, basic assumptions, customer orientation. Boeing and Hewlett-Packard, risk-taking and innovation. Sony and Toyota, employee participation, open communication and security. Asian Brown Boveri, entrepreneurism, self-discipline and control. So these are some of the few examples that I have mentioned here and their basic assumptions. Now, how assumptions impact organizational culture? We all make assumptions as we go about our daily life, right? With a good portion of them being made while at work. Now, many of these assumptions are made without knowing it or thinking about it. Assumptions are usually based on something we have learned previously and do not question. As part of our belief system, assumptions help us to form judgments, make meaning, and draw conclusions about what is happening and what others are thinking. When information is missing, they help us complete our own story. Assumptions are also an important part of daily life in organizations. They are the invisible, taken for granted beliefs and values that form the culture of an organization and impact how the organization performs. Students, think about your own organization for a minute. What assumptions are you making about your organization? Do others in the organization share your assumptions? Is there a set of shared assumptions that guide how work gets done, how people relate to each other, and how decisions are made? How easy would it be for everyone to identify the shared assumptions and describe the collective meaning of each shared assumption? Are the shared assumptions serving the organization well? If not, how hard would it be to change them? Now, answers to all these questions will help you begin to see the impact assumptions have in your organization. Because the impact of assumptions is felt individually and collectively in organizations as outcomes, it is useful to know what actions will have the greatest positive impact on organization culture. So what are the ways in which the impact of individual assumptions on organizational culture can be strengthened? Now, some of the ways in which the impact of individual assumptions can be strengthened are: know your ground truth, know your beliefs and values, know how you plan and think through everyday situations, know what information is relevant and accurate to making an assumption. Be open to the perspectives of others. Listen first. Seek to understand with questions before making an assumption. Test your assumptions to make sure you understand the intent of others. Use your critical thinking skills to break apart, analyze, and improve your assumptions. By paying attention to how assumptions are made, individuals begin to notice what they and others are taking for granted. This learning leads to new insights, different experiences, and ultimately improved assumptions. What are the ways to check the impact of shared assumptions on organizational culture? Shared assumptions represent the most powerful aspect of an organization's culture, but they are often not clearly articulated. However, it is essential for organizational leaders to have a strong grasp of their shared assumptions. Without this understanding, it is difficult to create and maintain a high-performing culture that encourages and rewards collective efforts. So let's see some ways for leaders to check the impact of shared assumptions. Observe what is going on around you. Listen to the stories shared in and out of the organization. See how others respond when acting as a role model or coaching others. Notice what people pay attention to. Check out the language and symbols commonly used. Is purpose seen as bigger than positions or practices? Notice the issues employees shy away from talking about. How accessible are resources and support? So all these are very important for you to pay attention. There are some other ways also, like, are groups working in harmony across the organization? Observe the reaction to critical incidents, to remedial and repair strategies. Notice the behaviors that are rewarded or ignored. So to understand the real culture of an organization, it is necessary to get to the deepest level of assumptions. It is a hard task that requires everyone's involvement. Most often, it will require organizational leaders to get things moving by identifying the shared values and associated behavioral expectations to address its most pressing internal and external challenges. If what the leader proposes works and continues to work, it can then become the shared assumptions. When shared assumptions form by this process, it creates the needed stability and meaning for the organization. When assumptions do not align with the shared values, disconnect arises. If left unattended, the impact will be seen across the organization. So what shared assumptions would be most valuable to support the needed change in your organization? I'm sure you will be to answer this question now. Please think, answer, and analyze your answer. In the next lecture, I'll talk about the other two important elements of Skeen's model, which are artifacts and values. Thank you.